Welcome to another Ready, Set, Go podcast. I'm Roy, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about a place in Africa called Liberia. And there, in about 2003, an incredible war ended, and it was an internal war mainly made up of child soldiers. And as the war ended, many people came in to try programs to try and, I guess, rehabilitate these young men who had got caught up, kidnapped into being soldiers. And many programs failed. It was a terrible time because these child soldiers were so indoctrinated into their way of life, it was very hard to leave it. And I know a story of one man, Emmanuel, who walked into the forest with these child soldiers with an unlikely object. He took a football with him. And in the middle of the field, this open ground, he kicked the ball around, and out of the trees came some of the child soldiers. They put down their guns and kicked the ball with him. And over the next month, they brought their friends, and there began a program of rehabilitation through sport, because football is just so powerful at helping people to just be in the moment, to try things, to use their bodies, to compete and to laugh. And it was mainly, it was incredibly successful. Today, we are talking about trauma and the role that sport can play in that. And I've got two beautiful guests with me. I've got Perla, a young woman from Lebanon, and she's currently experiencing the effects of war. And I've got Phil Dark, who is working with NGO, working with children who are at risk, orphan children. And so we are going to jump in. So say hi to
Yeah, so I'm Perla.
Yeah.
I'm from Lebanon, and I'm happy to be here with you guys, and I'm excited for what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, great.
And I'm Phil, and I'm from California in the United States of America. And I've been working with orphan and vulnerable children and families in Honduras and other parts of the world for about 20 years. So
Yeah.
excited to talk about this topic. It's a really important one.
So let's just jump into, what scenarios there is trauma happening. So Perla, you come from a pretty difficult part of the world right now. So tell us a little bit about what it's like for you.
Yeah, sure. So by my experience, I've experienced two types of traumas, where I live. So the people that are far from where the war is happening, but still hear every news, every sound, every plane that is going over in the skies. I'm from that people. So when the war was happening and it was intense and bombs were going on, places you cannot really know where it will be, even if it's far from where it actually is, but it can be also in other places. So it'd be always in this kind of tension, it can be next to me. I cannot go from this road because it might be a bomb can be hit there. So always this kind of tension, especially when you hear the planes, you hear the bombs. For example, we were in a youth group, gathering. We were playing board games and having fun, and suddenly the earth began to shake and we heard the bomb. It was so loud, so that we thought it was right next door, it was outside the door. So everyone went out, and people were, no, don't go out. Don't. It may be there. So yeah, we went out, and it turns out it's far, but because of the sound, how heavy it was, you will think that it's next door. So yeah, I was always in that fear, but also I was praying to God, whatever happens, I will put my trust in you, in whatever may happen with me. So that's the case with all people back then.
So it sounded very close, and like you could die at any moment, kind of thing. Yeah.
So you're God, my life is with you, so do whatever you want. Yeah.
And you mentioned a second group.
Yeah, so the second group is the one that is directly affected by what was happening. And that was the people who flew their homes because they were being bombed. So the area, the dangerous area. So all people who were living in that area were displaced and were living in schools, universities. So they were living kind of as refugees in their own country.
Oh, wow.
So that is a higher level of trauma, like more than what we experience, because they are living in that. Like they don't have food, no water, no mattresses. Like, yeah, you're in a school. Like, how would you live in a school and hundreds in a school? So yeah, that was like also another type of, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it sounds, that situation, life, just everything about life is very hard. Just getting the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to turn to Phil. Phil, what sort of trauma have you seen in your long career?
Yeah, it's very different from what you described, Perla. It's mine is more from a. It's not academic; it's experiential, but it's not my trauma, right? So it's not something that I've experienced firsthand. But it's with these children that we've been working with, orphan, vulnerable children, families. I've studied it. I've researched it a lot. We've worked with a community in Honduras, but you see most of it's coming from these children from really hard places. They're abused. They're abandoned. They're orphaned. Sometimes because of war, sometimes because of famine, disease, and then there's poverty orphans as well, who are just based on the life situation that their family comes from. And then also, where I live, we do have, as you're talking, we have a lot of refugees from Afghanistan, from Ukraine, in Northern California, where I live, and they're coming from just horrible situations, and for all of them, you're seeing most of the stuff I see in the orphan care world is it's attachment. A lot of it's attachment-based trauma. And so there's some PTSD, there's some things like that, but a lot of it's just based on the fact that they never really attached as children to their primary caregivers. And because of that, there's all kinds of long-term impact for those children, for their and also in those families as well. There's just things that have happened that have caused these trauma, long-term trauma in them and the impacts in them.
Yeah, they talk about the first 2,000 days and how key they are, and when things are not right in those first 2,000 days from conception right through to 5, you're really struggling in your life.
Absolutely. The good news that we have over the last 25 years or so is the brain science on neuroplasticity and being able to retrain the brain and being able to recover a lot of that damage. Whereas before it was thought that once that happens, it's
game over.
Yeah, sorry, you can't do it. If you haven't developed it by the age of 2 even, they said, you're out of luck. Now we're seeing, no, the brain is an amazing thing. So we can talk more about that too.
The hope that can come out of trauma. My experience with trauma, and I'm not sure if I introduced myself properly at the beginning, Roy Meredith, I'm from Australia. I'm a grandfather, father of 4 children, happily married. But in my career, I had a great deal of trauma at work. And at that time, I went into depression for a number of years. So I guess we're all hearing trauma from different angles, which is interesting. And so I guess that makes the conversation more interesting, that there's many ways to experience trauma. Trauma is a natural response when something sort of dangerous is happening. You can go into fight or flight. You've probably heard that before, and or freeze, and it's just a way that your body responds when something dangerous is happening, and so it's normal. But the thing is about war, about abuse or neglect over long term, that you're in this state. This chemical state for a long time. It's not just a short time. So we get adrenaline to run fast when we're in danger and then exit that place. But when it goes on and on, that's when the trauma happens. And so we're talking today about the role of sport in trauma. And I'd really like to hear, Perla, what role does sport play? Why is it, so good in a place like Lebanon where there is, rockets falling from time to time and things like that? What is it about sport? And tell us some stories.
Yeah, so from my small experience with dealing with families who are displaced and living in schools and kids, even older people, when you go to the school, you can feel the sadness, from their faces, you can see the trauma that they're living in. And some kids were not able to talk anymore. Maybe
they just go mute. They just stop.
Yeah. Like you said, they might experience freeze. Their tongue just freeze. Sense what happened with them back home. Maybe they saw something. Maybe they heard something. So yeah, and especially for me to take step out and say Lebanon has been through many things, and the trauma is living with the people without them knowing it. So everything that happens just adds another layer on that. Yeah. So even the kids living in the schools, or the kids that are just hearing things or just experiencing things, when they hear the sound, you can see the trauma that is living inside them, and it's not really showing. So a really good role sports play with these kids or with these families, with a small act of play or a small act of us serving them through sports, you can see, the smiles begins to pop up on their faces. I know a story of my friend who was also serving in a school. So there was this kid who was not able to speak because of what happened. And then one day after another, after 5 days of them going and playing with them, singing songs with them, just being happy, sending some joy. So 5 days later, he begins to speak again. He gained his life kind of back because of the spirit, the love, the joy. You can see how this can affect not only the way that we treat them, but when they treat each other while playing, this affects they hit each other. Let's be real, they can hit each other a lot while playing, but with this kind of joy that is happening, it
sounds like that it's sort of when you play sport, the hitting is normal, or that physical sense of it. It's just normalizes life. Yeah, feels okay again. Games.
Yeah, and we try to make this playground based on love and joy, and which makes them treat each other more well and more friends again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But they're still kids. They're still
kids.
Yeah,
But
things go wrong. Yeah.
So yeah, a powerful tool, when we go to play with them or sing with them or do any kind of sports with them, they would say why are you doing this? We should be sad. We should now sit with each other and just be sad because of what's happening. We said no, we don't have to be sad. We are bringing joy. We want to play with each other. We want to get out of this environment that we're in. So one day after another, you begin to see the change in them, and they would when they see you, they will just run. Oh, people who play with us came, so let's go and play. So yeah, you would see the impact that is. Maybe in the beginning you didn't see it, but after a while you can see the impact that is happening in their lives. And yeah,
and the little boy after 5 days talked again.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen many examples around the world across our network of, like in the tsunami in 2004, the kids' games had just started, and kids' games have been done in all sorts of places. It's incredibly adaptable. But after the tsunami hit, and parents were wandering around in a daze, and their homes had gone and all their belongings, the kids were still around, and and kind of getting in the way, because kids still want to be fed, they still want to, do stuff. And so the kids' games leaders came in, some of them were dressed as clowns, and they brought balls and balloons and stuff, and they just took the kids and normalized life again, just with games. And so that was very powerful. It happened the same in Pakistan and the floods just recently, 2 years ago or a year ago. And right now in the Ukraine, there's teams running camps over the summer break, and they're just doing sport. And these kids, like you were saying, Perla, who kind of think, I should be sad. The war's going on and my dad is on the front line. Sport has a huge role there just to bring them back to life is okay in some way. Phil, tell us a little bit of your experience with sport and dealing with trauma.
I love all that you're talking about. I even just think about the kids, and you say that they hate each other, but at the end of the day, if you keep playing, they will learn that they'll humanize each other. And when you humanize each other, it's hard to hate, really, because you realize they're so much more like you than you thought they were, right? And so there is that aspect of it, which is so massive in sports. That's why I love sports so much, is because it breaks down so many walls and breaks down so many barriers. But the other thing it can do, which I've seen especially in the kind of the orphan care space and the vulnerable child space with these attachment issues, is it provides a safe place for them to belong. And belonging is such a big part of building resilience, and building resilience from trauma is a big part of helping them thrive, right? And so that belonging, that consistency and structure from adults who, a lot of times what you hear in these spaces is, I don't want to love because, in the foster care community, for instance, I never want to love because everyone I've loved has left me. And these kids have felt that, if they attach, it never works. So that attachment issue is, a lot of these issues don't even manifest till way later in life. You have 15, 20 years down the line, where they're not able to attach to a wife or a husband later on. And so to have that adult role, person in their life who is super consistent. I do a podcast, and I did it on orphan care, and it was talking to a former foster child, and he described it as the Babe Ruth method. Now, this won't translate to a lot of people, but for people who know baseball, they know Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth was one of the most famous baseball players in the United States, played for the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox.
1930s?
1910s, 20s.
Okay,
yeah.
Earlier. Right,
and so he had a time where he what called his shot. Basically, he pointed out to left field, and he said, I'm going to hit a home run. And he actually hit the home run. And so he said, you got to have the Babe Ruth method, which is you need to say, I'm going to come and be with you on Thursday. So for a coach to say, I'm going to be with you every Tuesday and Thursday, you need to be at practice, and you tell them that that's what you're going to do, and you tell them that's what you're going to do and they need to do, and then you show up.
Yeah.
And you show up consistently because they haven't had that in their life. And it's not just say, hey, we'd love to connect with you at some point. It's no, I'm going to meet with you at this time on this day, and you show up every time. And showing up is so much a huge part of it. And it's such a big part of these kids who are in trauma and have issues attaching that, because oftentimes you'll say, oh, they're healthy because the kid will run up to you and grab you and give you a big hug when you've never met them before. You're like, oh, they're so comfortable with people. That's a major sign of attachment issues because they have indiscriminate friendliness, if they call it. So if you're not understanding and you're not trained up in this stuff at the basic levels, you'll often misinterpret trauma for a healthy behavior.
Yeah.
And so as a coach, I think it's also, or as a person in sport, it's important to have a basic understanding of trauma. And I will say, I'm not an expert at all. First to say that. I know enough to be dangerous, basically. but I know enough to understand. And I had to learn that the hard way, because I was talking to somebody and said, oh, the children that we work with are so healthy. Look, they just came up, and a friend of mine who's, she's a social worker. She pulled me aside. She said, Phil, that's not healthy at all. And I was working in this space. I was the director of the community at that point. But now that I've understood enough, I know the people that I can go to and point people to if there is that extreme trauma that needs the counseling, that needs the deeper care, that needs those things. But I think that sport is a place that we, really as lay people in this space can be that first step toward real healing by just connecting and being, sometimes it's not the first, maybe it's second, third, fourth. We're not the savior. We're not going to solve all the problems. But we can come in and be that first point of connection to that healing that all these kids need. And oftentimes, that's just simply providing structure, providing connection, and providing that place of consistency in their lives, that it may turn into kind of a father figure to some of these children who don't have fathers or mothers. It could be a mother figure, or it could just simply be someone who loves them in their life, who can point them to someone who they can trust. Yeah. Yes, and all the friends as well. Yeah, so all the kids, of course, but sometimes you can't really control what all these other people are doing. Yeah. But presumably, as the adult in the room, right, to also help those other kids be able to do it. But a lot of these kids, if you're working with kids in trauma and vulnerable communities, chances are a lot of them will have these same issues. So you can provide that for a lot of these kids, and then they can provide that for each other as they become healthy together.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Phil.
Yeah, and actually, like that reminded me, like when we used to go to the schools to the kids, a lot of other people also came to the schools and they provided help. They did some shows to the kids, but it was always a one-time thing, a one-time event. So kids were like, oh, these people are going to just come and play with us and then they're going to go away. But when we showed up every week, so they were like, oh, that they're coming back. They're consistent. So really you can see that, oh yeah, consistency really matters and with them, because you didn't just go to do something, to do an event, and then you're away. Like, no, we want to be with them. You want to have fun with them, build that community that you talked about, and that, like, I think that really matters a lot with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great example. For me, sport and trauma, me getting through my trauma and the depression afterwards, sport was huge. Just going to the gym, and that word consistency, just going every day, or doing a bike ride, doing a walk, going to the gym, it was a huge part of my healing. Sometimes you just think it's in your head, but actually it's about your body as well. And very powerful. You mentioned, Phil, about learning, like someone taking you aside and saying that was unhelpful. Actually that behavior is not normal. Like a child just hugging everybody. They should discriminate and go, no, they're trustworthy. I know them. Mm-hmm. I don't know them. I won't hug them. But I guess it raises this idea of sport and trauma is the limitations that the programs of sport are really trauma informed. Mm-hmm. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not trying to be. We're not trying to counsel kids, but we are trying to give them consistency, a space to play, a space to be normal. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, as you're even saying that, is we make a terrible Holy Spirit. And I think we also make terrible counselors if we're not counselors. But what we don't make are terrible human beings who can provide connection. And as long as we have a learning, humble posture, and we don't come into it with I know the answers, I'm going to fix you. And that doesn't work with anybody. That doesn't work with my wife. When she comes to me and says, hey, I got an issue, it doesn't work. Oh, tell me, I'll fix it for you. No, that's not what does she want 99% of the time? Just me to listen. And then if she asks the next question, what do you think? Then I can provide that. So often in these situations, we're to come in and just listen and learn and be there and be present. And we can do fun stuff and we can do these things, but that fun stuff doing those things often takes their mind off the things that are the real issues. That'll deal with a symptom. That won't go to the heart of the issue. That won't go to the foundational root issue, which will only get there over time with time, with relationship, with conversations, with consistency, with all those things. And so I think that to pretend to be an expert doesn't work really ever. You'll be found out, right? To say I don't know is really important and powerful, because that's oftentimes what people are struggling with is I don't know the answers to these things. So to hear for someone that they see as like an expert in something, or just even a mentor figure, to hear them say I don't know is freeing.
Yeah.
It's I don't have to know all the answers, but hey, let's figure it out together. So
yeah. And sport can play a really key role, even though you don't know all about the brain plasticity, or about trauma and psychiatry and things like that. Put simply, when you're in trauma, you first feel unsafe in your body, because, bombs are going off, or your floodwaters are, and so you feel unsafe there. And then you feel unsafe with relationships. And then you feel kind of mixed up in your thinking, like things are confusing or go in circles. And you think, I want to reason with kids, or I want to reason with people, but they can't reason yet until they're regulated first in their body. They feel safe in their body. And that's the power of sport, isn't it? Like they can feel normal. Even I was talking to Alyssa yesterday from Ukraine, running camps, and she said some soccer games take 5 hours because they kick the ball around for, and start the match. And then suddenly the sirens go off and they all have to run to a safe place, and then they come back later. But even though it takes 5 hours and it's really annoying that the game flow is broken, they're still running, breathing, using their bodies in normal ways. And that is so powerful. And then the regulating that's regulating their body, and then the relationships form. Yeah. And so as we finish up this discussion, and this has been really helpful, it's been helpful for me, but what's one thing you've learned that's really powerful, like a piece of advice for a young leader who maybe is working in a situation like, a Central American orphanage or in a war zone? What advice would you give this young leader about trauma and sport, Phil?
I mean, it's going to sound like it's a punt, but it's not at all. You don't have to have all the answers, and learn enough to know who you need to go to point people to the answers. And oftentimes there won't be an immediate answer that's obvious. It'll just be time. And so don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but also be willing and open and ready to invest in these people that God has put in front of you, to invest in their life, and just be there.
Yeah.
Be a friend. Be a friend, and be a consistent friend who stays. It's like I'd say with mentorship. Don't just say, I'm going to mentor for 6 months. If you're a mentor, the commitment should be, I'm ready to do this for the lifetime. If that's what God calls me to do, I'm going to do this. And trauma often it is a lifetime issue for people. And so how can you be that person in their life? And it likely won't last that long for most of the situations, but to go into it with, I'm going to be your friend. And that may be a lifetime thing.
Helpful, Phil. How about you, Perla?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, this thing applies to every kind of trauma, not only like his specific, like where he serves, and like even the war zone. But one of the, like, I want to add, like, you don't have to know everything, but also you have to be careful with this kind of people or kids that you're dealing with. Like the simple things, like just get directed to the simple thing. For example, what kind of games you can or cannot play with them. The kind of games that reminds them what's happened with them. The sound, maybe, the act. So simple things, but they matter. And what happened with us, we learned with the experience, like by experiencing it. Or for example, when you see a kid that is not really playing, and you will say, "Oh, come on, play or talk," but he's actually just shocked and he cannot talk. So you would intimidate him in front of the whole
Yeah.
room. So like these little stuff that you should be aware of, instead of experiencing it with the kids and like do something maybe that you would not like to do, like learn about this with the community, with your team. Just research about these small stuff so that you can be there for the kids and be their friends. And I emphasize on the friends thing. Like you don't have to be that number one coach, that just number one athlete that just I want to go and teach you how to play sports. Like you can just go and mess around. Like you don't have to.
You don't have to be a sportsman or whatever. You can just be yourself.
Yeah, you don't have to be professional, or not even the kids have to be professional, but just go, let them play, let them enjoy, let them have someone who is like really there for them and cares for them to go and play with them. So I think that is like very important.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Turning up consistently, just being yourself, but a learning version of yourself. Keep noticing and yeah.
I just want to add one more thing is don't pretend to know stuff.
Yeah.
And don't think you have to know all about trauma-informed care and about all this stuff, because that could actually do a lot of damage when you try to go in with an answer and it's wrong.
Yeah.
And you say something to somebody that you should do this and you just got to get over it, or you got to just push through, or you got to just talk, and they can't. Yeah. Like those are things that don't make that stuff up. It could do detrimental long-term damage.
Yeah, we're not psychologists, we're not psychiatrists. We love sport, we're passionate about people, and let's learn how to be in this space. I guess one thing I'd just add is there's hope. Mm-hmm. That with all that we know, people get through trauma, and we can help them to not just survive, but to really, really thrive. Thank you, Perla. Thank you, Phil. It's been a lovely discussion. And tune in for another Ready, Set, Go podcast. And if you want more information, go to readysetgo.world. Thank you.